o'clock, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Waco MPO Technical Committee meeting for Thursday, October 1st, 2020. We have one item of action that's on the agenda today, but before we get started with that, I'm going to ask Annette to go ahead and do a roll call of members. Annette, you're on mute.
I thought I was still on talking. Okay, please answer present. Anthony Beach. Keith Bond. Christy Bonham.
Present.
Amy Billerly Highland.
Present.
Tom Dahl.
Present.
Leola Davis. Mitch Davison.
Present.
Tom Dixon. Zane Dunham. Joe Dvorsky. Victor Gable.
I'm here.
David Gonzalez. Brigida Gonzalez.
I'm here. Thank you.
Jeff Jackson. Jim Jaska. Francisco Leos.
Here. Here.
Joel, thank you. Joel Martinez. Carl McNair. Matt Metters. Clint Peters. Serena Stevenson. Debbie Tahiri. Clayton Zaka.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, and consistent with our process that we have to conform to for virtual meetings, we did ask folks that if they want to or basically ask the public if they want to submit a comment or something to be read into the record, to do that in advance before 10 o'clock today, and we have not received any official feedback so far this morning. So we have one item for action, that is an amendment to the 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. We covered a lot of this last month, and basically we have to meter out the amount of dollars we're programming for Category 2 over a longer stretch of the 10-year Unified Transportation Program than what we had previously. From a statewide level, this translates into several $billions that need to be moved out of the first 4 years into a period sometime beyond fiscal year 2024. And the Waco MPO share was $70 million that we had to move out of this next 4-year period. So we had that conversation with you. We got the priorities that you felt were relevant for the 5 projects that 5 highway projects that were under consideration. We presented that to the MPO Policy Board, and they gave us the following direction, which we then translated into a draft amendment to our TIP. So this is slide 6 if you're following along online instead of through the Zoom call. So there are 3 projects that would be removed from the TIP, but keep in mind we're not losing dollars here. That's just we're spreading them out over a longer period of time than what we had previously. So the 2 projects which we've kind of lumped together, but they're actually 2 separate projects, and that is the I-35 breakouts. At least as far as what we adopted back in June, this translates to $48 million of Category 2 dollars. There is a revised cost estimate for these that is somewhat less, but at least for our conversation today, it represents $48 million being removed from the tip. And then there is the project on State Highway 6 from McLaughlin Road to Lady Bird Road, which is just beyond FM 185. That's an $8 million project, and that project will not be ready for construction for another 2 years. And so that's part of the reason why there's not a scenario to keep that in the tip at this time. The big conversation at the policy board level involved the mall-to-mall project. And there's been a lot of effort on the part of the district and the city of Waco to get that project ready for construction towards the end of fiscal year 21. The other discussion that was had was about providing an incentive to expedite the construction phase. During the conversation last month, it was believed that 10% was an appropriate figure. And that would be about $4.4 million added onto the $44 million construction cost. And then there are two projects that the policy board was adamant are very important, and that if there's any way for these to continue remaining in the tip, that we need to explore those options. The first one is the Highway 31 overpasses at FM 2311 and FM 939. And then the FM 2113 or Spring Valley Road project in the city of Hewitt. And then the map that shows these projects shows basically what's changing. The projects in red on the map are the ones that are being removed from the tip, but they're actually being programmed for a calendar year beyond the 4-year timeframe of this document. The one in orange is the mall-to-mall project. That's the one that actually would be moving forward by 2 years. And then the projects in green are not changed from the previous programming that we adopted back in June. Then we have to talk about Appendix D. So the projects that we're talking about that we're, quote, removing, unquote, from the tip, we still have an interest in moving forward with those at some point in the future. But in order to receive environmental clearance, we have to still make some type of commitment that we would agree to fund these projects when funds are made available. And so we accomplish this through our Appendix D. And so we would be adding in this amendment the Highway 6 project out towards McLaughlin Road and the full section of Interstate 35, the 4C phase to Appendix D, since at some point in the future, we are interested in moving forward with that, although it may be some further distance than what maybe we're thinking initially. And so when we look at the map here, we'll be adding those two phases of work to several other projects that were already identified in Appendix D. There will be no changes to those other projects, however. Okay, so we are interrupting this technical committee meeting to bring you some breaking news that has come to our attention over the last 48 hours. And unfortunately on a Zoom call, I can't hear your responses to this because you're in mute. So hopefully this is okay. So about a little less than 48 hours ago, we did get some guidance from the Transportation Planning Programming Division about the timing of the current or of the proposed 2021 to 2024 STIP. The bottom line is at the bottom and in big, bold, and red, and that is that the draft STIP is probably not going to be moved forward or presented to the Commission for approval until March of next year. Now that has some implications for some other work that's been identified beyond just the highway projects. Most notably our transit operations. So basically those dollars, which were already identified in the previous STIP, TxDOT is still going to let those projects or basically move forward with those projects as they were identified in the previous document. And so that's going to continue to allow Waco Transit to obligate the operational dollars that they need to continue operating their services. And if there were any construction projects that were identified for fiscal year 21 in the previous document, then those projects would continue to move forward. Now, for our region, there weren't any, so that doesn't necessarily impact us directly. There is no plan to modify that previous document. So if it wasn't already in there, it's going to have to wait until the new STIP is approved, which now is starting to look like that could be as late as maybe April or May of next year. I'm hoping that's not the final answer to that question. I'm hoping to have a conversation with Jessica Butler at some point as my role of Tempo Director. But right now, that's the guidance that we have received, and so that's the timeline that we're working off of for the time being. The other piece of breaking news that we received about 3.5 hours ago from the Waco District was that the TP&P division has said, no, we must strictly adhere to the reductions that we were given back in August, which means that we have 50 million available. That's what we have to work with. The direction that the policy board gave us in the 3 projects was 68.4 million. And so the answer we were given is that does not work. And so we have to come up with a different game plan. And so the Waco District has given us another concept for consideration. And so this is what they've come up with and have given for us to discuss today. So we're on now slide 14. So it doesn't appear that there's now a scenario by which Spring Valley Road can remain in the TIP, at least for right now. Now, there may be some opportunities later on. We'll talk about that in the next slide. But for right now, it looks like that's probably not going to remain in the TIP. CAT $2, that's 10 million. The Highway 31 overpasses are not unscathed either. The proposal right now is that only one of the 2 bridges would go forward, and that is the bridge at FM 939, which is the worst of the 2 in terms of crash history. And the bridge at FM 2311 is just going to have to wait for another day. That translates into another 5 million of CAT 2 costs that we would be removing. And then the mall-to-mall project remains. But the maximum we're allowed to incentivize on that project turns out to be 5% or about $2 million. So the revised cost is a little bit less than what we had in the original draft amendment of 40. So we're now at 46.5 million. Now that brings us a little bit above that $50 million threshold. The hope is that's close enough. If not, we may have to consider removing the incentive, but hopefully that's something that can remain in this for the time being. Without the incentive, we do get below that $50 million threshold that we're advised is pretty firm. So what's in the future? Well, one of the things that we have to talk about is the fact that our numbers were actually adjusted by 14.7 million less than we otherwise would have programmed. And this is related to the interstate project that's currently under construction and related to the fact that that project was more expensive than what was originally programmed. Now, this is kind of one-off. This goes away after this year, and so we don't have to worry about that continuing in the next fiscal year. And 2 years from now, we have another tip that we're going to be adopting, And there will be additional Cat 2 dollars coming in as a result of that. So there is some possibility to bring the Spring Valley and the other Highway 31 overpass into the TIP either next year or maybe the year after. The other consideration here is that the Highway 31 overpass, unfortunately, is very competitive for the state's highway safety program. And the reason it's competitive is you have bad crashes. So the district is still going to pursue that opportunity. That is a competitive program statewide, so it's far from a guarantee that you're going to receive those dollars. But if it turns out that that project is selected, say next year, then obviously we'll be bringing that back before you to move forward with. And then to bring you up to date on where federal and state funding might be headed, the FAST Act actually expired last night. Although our understanding is that that has been extended by one fiscal year at 2020 levels. There is going to be a rather robust discussion about what replaces the FAST Act over this next year. And there's already been discussion about higher spending levels at the federal level. We'll see how that pans out. But we also have a new legislative session coming up this spring. And transportation, both at the federal and state level, is one of the few topics that our representation can seem to agree on as being important. And our experience is over the last decade that we've had a number of new pots of money become available or created by either Congress or the state legislature that were not really on anyone's radar screen previously. So this may not be the end of that story as well. So we do have a public process for that draft TIP amendment in process. We've already commenced a 15-day comment period. We have public informational meetings we're going to conduct this upcoming Monday. We are set up for action before the policy board on Thursday, October 15th with a formal public hearing. But from the MPO staff perspective, this is a lot of changes, a lot of new information that's come at a very last minute, and is very, very different from the direction that we received from the policy board. And so while if you as a technical committee feel comfortable moving forward with what has been presented to you, we will certainly present that to the policy board. But I think for us, our recommendation is that maybe we take a pause here, resubmit this to the policy board, make sure that they're comfortable with these changes, conduct another public process in late October or early November to make sure that the various stakeholder interests and the public that we represent are okay with those proposed changes, which are different than what we've already posted online. And then we would bring this back to you, the technical committee, on November 5th, and have adoption by the policy board at their next meeting on November 19th. And based on the guidance that we've received earlier, this isn't going to represent any kind of delay to any of these projects, since the commission won't be acting on these until March of next year. So with that, I'd like to open it up to conversation from the technical committee. But actually, before I do that, Victor, if you can go ahead and make sure that I haven't missed anything important here.
No, I mean, everything you've said so far seems to be in line with what we at the district have been talking about, and what you and I have talked about as far as what we think is a best fit scenario where we can still get all our projects out. Yes, the timeline's a little bit different, but as far as the priorities and what really needs to get done first, I think this addresses it. And then, like you said, still keeps the door open in the future to bring in the other stuff that we want to get done also.
Thanks, Victor. Let me open up for discussion by the technical committee.
All right, I'll go first. Nobody jumped in there. I'm not comfortable making a recommendation on this today. I think I need to cogitate on it a little bit. So I'm supportive of the, since there isn't a particular impetus for us to vote today, for us to take some time to consider and run it back through the policy board and see what they think.
Thanks, Amy. Anyone else on the committee agree with that direction?
Chris, this is Frank Lales. I think with all the wholesale changes, I think we need to step back a little bit and wait and present the changes to the policy board.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Is there anyone on the committee that feels differently? Okay, sounds like we're probably in agreement here. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and represent this to the policy board on October 15th, and then restart our public process at that point. We'll go ahead and continue with the one that's currently ongoing. We'll go ahead and continue with the public meetings that we have scheduled for Monday. But we will go ahead and present what we present to you today, so that we can get some initial feedback for anyone who's on that call Monday. But we'll conduct another process after the October Policy Board meeting. All right, if there's nothing else on that topic, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Clayton with his construction updates. And so Clayton, the show is yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, our first project, our Hewitt Drive sidewalk project. Again, most of the sidewalk is completed along Hewitt Drive. Contractors working down Panther Way. Should start signal work later this year, early part of next, and wrap up the entire project next summer. 1637 phase 3. This is another project that's getting close for us. We actually should wrap up our final surface pavement this week. We're working with Encore to get the signal turned on there at Bob Johnson. Hopefully we'll have that done this month. Project striped end of October and totally out of there by November. So 4B, I guess, Chelsea, if you want to turn control over to me. We've got a presentation of drone photos. This has been shown at the policy board, but not here. So let's see. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, this is at the north end of the project, looking north. You can see the left side of the screen there, the southbound frontage road's been completed. We've got some bond breakers for the new southbound main lanes. We'll be paving that actually starting this week and next. The bottom of the picture there is going to be the new Barron's overpass, and we should be setting beams there tonight, actually. So, and then on the right side of the page, you can see newly constructed concrete pavement for the northbound frontage road, going up towards Walmart. From our north there, we have just wrapped up our drainage work, should be finishing subgrade, asphalt bond breaker, then should be paving it the end of October as well. Okay, this next slide is looking south from Barron Circle towards 84. Again, you can see the newly completed southbound frontage road on the right side of the screen. It should be paved towards the end of October as well. And then left-hand side, subgrade work is going on for the new northbound frontage road. This is at the 84 intersection looking to the east. You can see the Sam's Club there on the right side of the page, HEB on the left. This intersection at the bottom has actually been paved since this picture was taken. There's concrete through the intersection. Work will continue on the east side there for the next few months. All right, this is looking north from 84, so just another view of the subgrade work I mentioned earlier. And again, you can see on the right side of the page the front road portion that's been paved, and then subgrade work continuing on to the north. Now this is from the 84 intersection looking to the south towards Business 77. Down at the bottom of the page, you can see a portion of the bridge structure. We actually completed setting beams there last night. So deck work will be ongoing. On the left-hand side of the page, you can see the bond breaker that was in place for the northbound frontage road. We've actually placed concrete on a good portion of this picture since this was taken. And then about in the middle of the page, you can see a ramp coming together. So we'll be next to Business 77. Along with an entrance ramp that crosses underneath it to get on the new southbound main lanes. All right, and this is a good picture of 77. You can see just how much this interchange has changed since we started. We've taken the direct connects down, brought it to an at-grade intersection, and you can really see the west side of that intersection starting to take shape. The Business 77 overpass, we've completed the majority of the substructure work, and beams will be set on, I forget the exact date, but late October into November for that bridge. This is looking much from the business section, and you can see that how much the west side of the intersection has changed. The overpass has been taken down, the protector is brought down the grade. And retaining wall was actually started in this area as well. And then again, on the right-hand side of the page, where the asphalt has been placed, that's now been covered with concrete pavement since this picture was taken. Now this is from the Business 77 intersection looking to the south. This is the 4th Street overpass. You can see the top of the page. Work's wrapping up on the left-hand side there. We expect having this overpass go in October, early part of November, along with the rest of this newly constructed northbound frontage road up to 84. So and then on the right-hand side, you can see some of the new southbound main lane concrete pavement that's been completed. This is directly above the 4th Street overpass. You can see we've got substructure completed for the road overpass. Since this picture was taken, we've actually set beams over the railroad tracks, setting panels, and are on schedule for that bridge here in October. There's another view of the bridge over the railroad pass. There's been a lot of retaining wall work in this area, and you should see more ongoing over the next month. And then probably sometime in November, permanent pavement being placed for the southbound main lanes in this area. This is the MLK overpass. We've set beams with the exception of one span on this bridge. That'd be the southernmost span. It'll be set this month, and we anticipate pouring that bridge deck by the end of October. And again, since this picture's taken, there's been quite a bit of retaining wall that's been placed on both the north and south sides of this intersection. All right, here's some photos of the steel beams that were set over the Brazos. Of course, that's been completed to date, and we're starting deck work, but here's just a couple of good pictures. Here's one with the tugboat pulling the barge into place to set the drop-in section of the beam. Here's one from above the crane, so you can see just how steep the pick was for that steel beam. Go back one. All All right, here's another picture of our beam setting operation. Here's a little video. I didn't get this to work last time. Here's pretty good visual progress there. Again, here's workers installing the slice plates and bolts for connecting the drop-in sections for these structures. And again, this has now been completed since these pictures were taken. Good overhead view. All right, this is around the University Parks intersection. Just actually being poured this week. Again, a lot of this retaining wall work has been ongoing. We started our paving work later over on the main lanes. You can see on the inside of the front road of the asphalt long record, actually boring additional lanes there. Should be next week, so that'll open up some space along the southbound road. You can see on the right hand side of the page, we've done some concrete work for the northbound frontage road and University Parks intersection. We've actually placed some more pavement there. We anticipate opening that little piece of the frontage road and right turn lane hopefully later this month. And it'll open up the side lane. Here's an overhead view of the 4th Fifth Street overpass, which has been placed. Again, retaining wall work is ongoing here in front of these businesses. Something to mention at the bottom of this page, you can't see it, but 4th Street will be actually closing 4th Street at the southbound frontage road beginning next week for approximately 3 months to do some waterline work and pavement work. But we are going to open 4th Street to two-way traffic from this work back to Clay Avenue to allow for local access to the apartment complex and businesses there. And then on the left-hand side, you can see where northbound frontage road, we've got subgrade work going on. Again, we hope to have pavement going on the ground by the end of October in this area.
Clayton, real quick, that's 5th Street that you'll be opening to two-way, correct?
No, sir, it's actually 4th.
Okay, so it's 5th Street that gets closed?
No, 4th Street will be closed just at the intersection. So from the southbound frontage road to the first driveway there into the CVS parking lot or In-N-Out parking lot. So that area will be closed. If you want to get to 4th Street from the southbound frontage road, you'll take the 4th, 5th exit, but then turn right at University Parks to Clay Avenue.
Oh, I see.
And then at Clay, you'll be able to turn left onto 4th Street at that point and access the apartment complex or get down to In-N-Out.
Ah, got it. Thanks.
Sir. Okay, and this is from the south end of the project looking north. Again, you can see the completed bridge. Since this has been taken, a lot of retaining wall work has been ongoing to the south. Crews have currently poured half of the 8th Street intersection here. We hope to have it fully constructed and opened up by the end of next week. 6th Street was poured and reopened on permanent pavement, and we should be working on 7th as soon as 8th Street gets reopened. And then right now, we're projecting to have all of these side streets reopened prior to Thanksgiving in this area. So that'll be a big benefit down here. And then again, to the right of the page, the ongoing subgrade work for the northbound frontage road, which again, we hope to be paving later in October. This is the 12th Street overpass, which has been towards the picture that was taken. We'll actually be paving the new southbound main to the end of the bridge that the project wants to the south for the next couple of weeks. So we're continuing to progress here. On the left-hand side of the page is the 16th Street area. Again, hope that by the end of October, we have 16th Street in this northbound connection, get that area cleaned up. And then this that answered.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Clayton? And we apologize, some of you may have, Clayton may have been breaking up for you on your sound end, so we'll try to see if we can diagnose that in the future.
Yeah, I think it was kind of unavoidable. These are just like such large photos that the bandwidth is limited, I think, but we could still see it.
So does anyone have any questions for Clayton? Okay. All right, well, Clayton, if you can go ahead and unshare your screen, I can go ahead and get back with. All right. Okay, so our next technical committee meeting is November 5th. We'll have the revised TIP amendments. Actually, I think these are the revised TIP amendments that we're going to present to you, and hopefully they won't be further revised between now and then, but it's always a possibility. The Waco District is going to have a draft transportation systems management and operation plan that they'd like to present to you. And so MPO staff and several of you on the technical committee have been part of that process. And so we're looking forward to seeing some of their recommendations that'll be coming out of that. And a lot of those recommendations will probably eventually find their way into our Metropolitan Transportation Plan and eventually our TIP as well. And then, of course, we'll continue our conversation about significant highway construction that's been going on. So we are continuing with virtual meetings at least through the end of this year. We're probably also looking at probably the first quarter of next year, continuing virtual meetings, and maybe for some time after that. But we'll, when we're ready to, or when the state is ready to transition to something a bit different, we'll certainly keep you up to speed on that. Does anyone have any questions about anything coming up? And is there anything else that members of the committee would like to have a conversation about in the future?
Chris, I was going to ask you a question about the study group. Have they not met on the, you know, it's been a long time since we met, but I just.
Yeah, the COVID-19 setup kind of put things on a temporary pause for that. But yes, we've been discussing with TTI, and we're probably looking maybe in the next 30 days or so, getting that started back up and then bringing something to that steering committee again.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Any other discussions? Well, that's all we have for today. I want to thank everyone for joining in, and we will see you again on November 5th. Thanks.